Well, the sovereignty movement is based upon an assumption that sovereignty is not here,
Okay.
that people are trying to achieve sovereignty. So everybody creates a group to try to achieve it. My research confirms that sovereignty never left. It exists by virtue of the executive agreements with the President of the United States, who's supposed to administer Hawaiian law. So when you start to bring out the executive agreements, then it throws into question the sovereignty movement, because you can't be the government if the government wasn't restored yet by the president.
Have you made this point with the president? Have you written him or?
Yeah, actually, I have a lawsuit that I filed in Washington D.C. at the federal district court, where I'm suing President Obama, Secretary of State Clinton, Secretary of Defense Gates, and Admiral Willard of the Pacific Command for failing to execute the executive agreements, which is a direct violation of the Supremacy Clause of the U.S. Constitution.
Sounds to me like this man's got a U-turn going on, folks. We're going to have to stay tuned. I also do phone interviews. I want to keep in touch with you. Is that all right?
Sure.
And maybe call you on the phone and
Sure.
find out what's going on and how everything's going?
I mean, the information that I provide, it's being taught at the university.
Okay.
This is not Keanu's theory.
Right.
I'm actually sitting on doctoral committees because I have a PhD, and they're addressing these issues with other professors on the committee. It's becoming an accepted fact that Hawaii is occupied and it's not a part of the United States. What begs the question, though, in this research, how do you fix the problem? See, that's what always comes, how do you fix it? And that's the basis of the PhD. So my dissertation not only speaks to the continuity of the country as an independent state, the Hawaiian Kingdom, but it also provides an answer, how do you fix the problem? Okay. That's Chapter 5.
Well, I hope you come to this island again. I hope we can, if you come here again, I want to have an hour interview with you. I got to talk to that guy there, because he said it was 30 years he's been preparing for today. And you helped him in his dream, and I really want to get to him.
Sure.
I think that, whoa, you deserve to be called doctor, because you really fixed it in there. You really fixed the patient. All right, ladies and gentlemen, my hat's off to this individual. I mean, it had to be off because I was inside the court, but I'm not inside the court. I'm going to catch up with this attorney, and I want to thank you. And I'll tell you what, I'll get
the state having those attributes. Hawaii achieved the recognition of that status on November 28, 1843, at the Court of London by Great Britain and France, thus recognizing Hawaii as an independent and sovereign state. Secretary of State John C. Calhoun in 1844 then followed up with formal recognition by the United States of the Hawaiian Kingdom status as an independent state. Between 1843 and 1893, for 50 years, the Hawaiian Kingdom entered into treaty relations with other countries, establishing consulates and embassies. And the issue of nationality back then was termed Hawaiian subject. Hawaiian subject is multi-ethnic. And you had people who were nationals of the country who also served abroad in diplomatic posts, as well as people who worked within the kingdom government based upon that nationality being a Hawaiian subject. In fact, this court that we sit in actually all originated back in 1845 under the Organic Acts of Commemorate III passed by the Hawaiian legislature.
Thereafter, what additional information would also be consistent with your previous testimony?
Well, given the fact that my doctoral dissertation, as well as law journal articles, I've written a few law journal articles that have been published, and it addresses the continuity of the Hawaiian Kingdom, and it addresses in particular that state status, and whether or not a state can be affected through an overthrow of a government. And that is where scholarship and treatises and international law clearly state that a state can continue to exist despite the overthrow of its government.
Well, let's talk about that. So in terms of international law, where there's been an occupation or military occupation of another country, what does the law say in terms of the continued existence or termination of that foreign state?
The basis of a state is what we call its legal order. The government is the body that exercises that legal order. That legal order, which is in the Hawaiian Kingdom's case, the civil code, the penal code, as well as common law, case law, that was decided within the Hawaiian Kingdom Supreme Courts. That legal order continues to exist despite a government being overthrown, which is the body that exercises that authority. If another foreign state enters into the territory of this sovereign state and is responsible for the overthrow of that government, international law mandates that that intervening state must establish a military government to administer the laws of that occupied state. And that's been the basis of international law since the 16th, 17th century. Now, a case in point that people might think of is the overthrow of the Iraqi government in 2003. Iraq actually received the recognition of its independence in 1932. See, Iraq used to be a part of the Ottoman Empire. It was administered by the British. As a mandate territory, it achieved its independence in 1932, thus meeting the qualifications of the four attributes: nationals, territory, government, and the ability to enter into foreign relations. In 2003, the US military and the coalition forces overthrew, by military force, the Iraqi government. But by overthrowing the Iraqi government, that did not equate to an overthrow of Iraq as a sovereign state. The legal order was still in existence, and what managed or regulated that particular situation is what we call the international law of occupation, in particular, the Hague and Geneva Conventions of 1907 and the Geneva Convention of 1949. And Article 43 of the Hague Convention basically says that the occupier must administer the laws of the occupied state. That's because of the continuity issue.